But into engine class we have to do, in engine class we have engine name. That type is what? It's a primitive type. Will container will predict values? No, right? So for engine class manually we have to create object. So for engine class, if I create object by using component scan, who need to pass values? You need to pass, right? So for that engine class manually you need to create object. In case if your class, if it contains any primitive types, bean id engine class name engine class fully qualified path engine package dot engine class. Into this engine class you have to do manual dependency injection. Property name engine name and the value or the engine. So then here component scan not required. In case if that class, if it contains any primitive types, if it contains primitive types, by using component you should not create that class object. If it contains any primitive types, manually you have to create object and you have to do the dependency injection. Then but car class object container will create automatically, and this engine object automatically it will inject into car class. Container finally how many objects it will create? First it will scan this package, it will create one car class object. It will create one car class object. In that car class object we have one engine reference. It will keep that engine reference value null. And the next it will activate your annotations here. After that it will create one engine object here. It will create one engine object here. And the engine reference is E. Then in that engine we have one engine name. Engine name value it will put null. Then again here you are passing some value. It will override that value here. Then after that it will pass the same engine reference here and it will override the null value. Automatically it will inject. Okay. So you can see here for this stereotype annotations also you have to use Spring 3 dependencies. So add library, user library, just I'll create Spring IOC new is what? No. Add library, user library, create one new user library, Spring 3 IOC. For Spring 3 IOC you have to add commons logging, expressions, core, context, beans, ASM. Add these dependencies to class path. Then you can go through stereotype annotations. Create packages, com.ds. cabs dot car package. Create a class car here. Create one more package, engine package. Create a engine class here. In engine class, take one primitive type dependency, private string engine name. And write one setter and getter. Then car class, take dependency here, private engine reference, and write one method here, public void print engine data. Engine name, engine dot engine dot get engine name, you can print here. For this property, what we have to use to inject automatically this engine, we have to use auto wired here. Okay. JDK version compiler is 1.4. 1.4 will not support annotations, right? From 1.5 we have that support. Yeah, I changed it to 1.7. And on top of this car class, you can keep component. So this component annotation, what it will do? If your class, if it contains component annotation, container automatically will create this object. If your property, if it contains auto-varied annotation, automatically container will inject this object. Now create a XML file. In that XML file you have to use schema based configurations. Here you have to use schema, XML schema. You have to add context schema, add this schema here, context schema, add this context schema, close main root tag. Then you need to scan only one package, context component scan base package. The package name is what? For car, the package name is com.ds.cab.car. car package. And for engine you no need to scan, because for engine we need to create object. The reason, engine class it have primitive type. And activate your annotation. So which annotations it will activate? You can read that annotation there. Required auto wired as well as JSR 205 post construct pre-destroy and @resource @web service reference and EJB @EJB @persistent context @persistent unit @transaction attribute @transactional. These many annotations it will activate. So you no need to remember all the bean post processor class names. Just you can go through context colon annotation config. It will activate all the annotations. Okay. And one bean object we have to create. Bean class engine class object. Engine dot engine class name. In this engine class we have one primitive property. So that primitive property compulsory manually we have to pass. So that property value you should pass here, engine name, and the value engine value. Then automatically this engine object it will inject it into this automatic created car class object. Okay. Test it by loading this document into IOC container. Write a tester class. Use application context container. Which container we have to use? Basic core container will not support annotations. You have to go through J2EE container only here. Class path XML application context. Load the document here. Resources slash spring.xml file. Fine. Then I need to get which class object here to print that method? ap.getBean of car object we need to get. What is the car class reference? We didn't created any car object. Container creating object. Which ID reference it will use? We don't know. Usually it need to create package name dot class name as a ID name. By default, your package name dot class name it need to use for your ID. So, in case if it use ID, which ID it need to use? com.ds.cap.car only it will use. This ID only it will use by default. In case if it is not possible through this ID, ID not found. Bean ID, no bean name with com.ds.cap.car. Okay, give small c here, maybe small c it will use. Not supporting. So then I don't know ID. In case if you don't know ID of your class, give that class dot class. Then in container it will search for the car classes. If it find any car class object, that object it will return. Okay, it will return car class. Then it will call finally engine. Okay, by giving your dot class argument also you can get car class object. Okay, into this car class object automatically container what it will do? Automatically it will inject engine object. Car class object created automatically, engine class object injected automatically into car, right? So you can do automatic dependency injection as well as you can do by using container auto object creation also by using stereotype annotations. So it will reduce almost programmer burden. You no need to do anything, just you need to scan your packages. After writing all the classes throughout MVC, just you need to scan that packages. Automatically it will instantiate all the classes and it will do the dependency injections. But it is useful only for secondary types. In case if that class if it contains any secondary type dependent parameters, for that classes only it is useful. In case if it contains any primitive type, container it can't able to pass that primitive types. So we must need to create that classes objects. Let's say if you are going to create connection object, to create connection object we need to pass driver URL username passwords. So in that case to create that connection object or to create that connection factory class, we must need to pass some values. In that case that component scan we should not use for that classes. For the remaining classes if they have secondary type dependencies you can use component scan. Okay. Okay. So you can do any type object dependency injection, right? Up to now we discussed primitive types, secondary types, primitive arrays, secondary arrays and collections. Any any type dependency if your class if it contains also you can inject right now. But if your class if it contains any static variable, how many types of variables we have? Two types, static and dynamic. Up to now we discussed only dynamic parameters. In case if class if it contains any static parameters and if you have static methods, then how to do static variable dependency injection? I'll show you. Up to now in all use cases we discussed only non-static values, non-static variables only we discussed. In case if class if it contains any static variable, then the dependency injection style is different. Static variable dependency injection. Static variable dependency injection. class car if it contains one static private static string name and if you have one static setter method also should be static, public static void set name. So car dot name equal to name. This we should not use here. This only for non-static. For static variables, class name dot variable name. Car dot name equal to this local parameter, local variable name. Then finally here, if I have a static method, hello static method, public static void hello. Here to say hello system.out.println hello plus name directly we can use here, right? Static variables directly we can access from static methods. Non-static variables we can't access in static methods. And the static variables you can access directly in non-static methods. But static variables directly you can't able to access in non-static methods. Okay. Now this static variable dependency injection, if you want to do, direct approach is not useful. Like if you try to use beans and beans, in between beans and beans, if you try to create car class object bean id, see class name car, and if you try to inject by using property tag, it will not support it. Name, this is not useful to inject a static variable. Then for injecting static variables we have one support class. That class name is method invoking factory bean, method invoking factory bean. This method invoking factory bean class will help us to pass a static variable into static method. By using this method invoking factory bean class, you need to pass values into static methods. This class is predefined class in Spring. Okay, it's a predefined class in Spring. In this class they given setter methods. That setter methods are set arguments, string array of arguments, object array of arguments, and we have one more method, set method name, static method, set static method, string static method. That method name we have to set. Here we have two setter methods in this factory bean class. By using one method, your method name you should configure. By using one method, you need to pass that method arguments. So if you see car class, in this car class we have one static setter method. The method name is set name, and the argument what it's required, a string name. So here by using this set method, you need to pass your class name dot that method name, set name. This is my actually setter method name. And by using this arguments, what you have to pass, object array of arguments. So I don't want that many arguments, just one simple argument I want to pass, value car name. So my method name is set car dot set name is my method, and the required value is this RD. So by using this method invoking factory bean, you need to do this. This direct approach is not useful. So then create car class object, leave it. and create here method invoking factory bean class object. Bean class method invoking factory bean, method invoking factory bean. Here they given one setter method, property name, first set method name, static method name. Okay, anyways, first one is static method. Your static method name you should configure here in between this property and property, that method name value. The static method name is car class dot set name method. First one static method and the value is car dot set name. And the second method is set arguments. Which arguments you want to pass into this method? That arguments you need to pass here. Property name arguments. Which arguments it will take? The arguments type is arguments type. It will accept which arguments? Object array arguments. So how to pass that array arguments? To pass array, what we have to use? List and list. In between list and list you have to use value. Your required value you have to pass. Can I pass string object into object array? We can pass, right? So you can pass a string. So then this argument value it will pass to the setter method. It will pass to the setter method. Then by using this reference you can get car object. After getting that car object you can call this hello method. It will make available that data in this method. You can see here static variable dependency injection. Static variable dependency injection. Add IOC dependencies. Create a package beans and class car class. Write a property here, private static string name, a string car name. Now write one setter method. Set void car name and write one method public static void hello. Or print car name. Car name is just car name. Now inject this static variable from Spring XML file. First try to use simple approach. You first use normal approach by using property tag, try to inject it. Definitely you will get a exception here. Bean ID car class name beans dot car class. Pass property car name. Try to load this document. C dot print car. What it is saying? Not writable property, invalid property, car name. Bean property car name is not writable or has an invalid setter method. So by using property tag you can call only non-static setter methods, not static setter methods. Here the setter method is static. Here in our class that method is static setter method, but the property tag we have to use only for non-static setter methods. So in case if static setter method if you have, then this is not the way to inject. You have to go through method invoking factory bin. Static variable dependency injection is possible through this method invoking factory bin class. The class name is method invoking factory bin. So fully qualified path we required, method invoking factory bin. And the two setter methods are method invoking factory bin dot set arguments, and one is method dot set static method. Yes, fine. First configure this class name here, method invoking factory bin. First call your car class method, property static method. The static method value is your method name, complete fully qualified path, beans dot car class dot, under car class the method name is set car name. Into this method you need to pass value by using arguments. By using these arguments you need to pass values, but value directly you can't able to pass it because it's a array type. So array type values we need to pass in between property and property by using list value. That's it. So into which static method this method invoking factory bin will pass value? Into this beans car class setter car name. Into this set car name method it will pass one value RD. Then by using this reference you can get car class object and you can call that method. Now run this. Car name injecting. So in this way you can do static variable dependency injection. Okay.